A returnee from the days of Medarot Navi with a rather strange versatility, but if used right, can make himself a very valuable ally. It is CCC00 Yellow Crick, with a kit of field control, double bug, biped legs, and the leg ability of straight, which passively buffs the success of all equipped melee parts. Now, as a previous event reward, Yellow Crick is one of those models that has been relatively forgettable and slept on for the longest time. But it's that very large sleeping on that actually has kind of stowed away and hidden away a good chunk of what actually make him a very valuable ally or part to collect for anyone that did snag him. Field control on the head is a rather unique support skill that we don't see super often. But simply explained, field control will change all terrain matches to A rank for himself and all allies, and it will also fully cap all legs of himself and all allies to a heavy limit of 3. Now you may recall a couple of these effects from other buffs such as say Dominion, which does relatively the same thing of changing all terrains to A rank. Field control is basically just the earlier version of that, so it can be made and put to very good use if you really can't ever find a way to match terrain for whatever reason you can think of. This could especially apply on terrains where not a lot of leg types have masteries, such as, say, snowy terrain or aquatic terrain, and you want to try to maintain at least something of a competitive edge while not having to truly sacrifice your speed or mobility all the while. Bug on both arms are ailment skills that, upon attacking the target, if you correctly catch them in heat phase and outrun them, will inflict them with no defend, but will also effectively make them turn skip. So that means they have to run all the way to the center line to effectively waste their turn before they can turn around and come back. This alone makes it incredibly useful for turn skipping and stalling more dangerous enemies on the field, or that pesky ailment fighter or healer that wants to try to get under your skin, or try to progressively turn the table in their favor by just being there as an irritant. Biped legs means that Yellow Crick has pretty solid coverage across all terrains, as Biped has arguably one of the best well-rounded leg matches of all when it comes to terrain mastery. And when it comes to the stats too, Yellow Crick is kind of in that mid-range where he's actually not bad, I guess, but kind of in that decent range as well. Head HP is packing about 3150. Arms about 2,700 each, which is actually kind of squishy, unfortunately, when it comes to melee-based parts, especially for males like him. And his legs packing about 3,250 means he is a little light on the armor, so some caution would most certainly be advised if you are going to use Yellow Crick on the field, whether that be as mixed parts or as a pure set. His leg stats aren't too shabby. A couple of points that could definitely be seen as potential pain points, but across the board, he isn't a bad leg either for anyone that does need to use it. A mobility of 675 is kind of in that average range biped legs tend to sit in, so nothing overly impressive there, but he will be relying moderately heavily on his heat cool stats, Medarot bonuses, or terrain mastery to bump that up as high as he can get it. An evade of 996 is pretty good, not too shabby, kind of in that mid-range of where biped legs want to sit at. A melee resist of 1131 is not too bad either. He can hold his own up close and personal moderately well. And a shoot resist of 707 isn't terrible. It could be better, but it's not worse either. So I would definitely recommend exercising some caution if you are going to use him on the field, especially if the enemy team has long shot or long range combatants to try to even out the odds to take shots from afar while being relatively safe about it. As a pure set score though, all this said, I still do have to rate Yellow Crick a pretty solid 6.5 out of 10. Field control is a rather strange support skill that is very largely slept on, and even though for the most part you tend to try to maximize leg masteries where you can, there are some points where you just really can't, whether that be from just not having the right metal for it, or even just from not wanting to sacrifice any of your other part builds just to make something work, because you know what you have will work. So it can be a very useful skill, but at the same time, it does require a turn to activate, so it does also require you to have luck on your side and survive any first turn salvos in order just to get that buff up and running. Bug on both arms as well is nice to have, as it does mean he will have turn skipping capability, but since he does have it on both arms, it does severely limit what he can do on the field. Because once field control is active and he's effectively been able to use Bug, that's kind of it for him, unfortunately. Plus, if the enemy side is using Stat Cleanse, that also does greatly hinder what he can offer to the field, and make about 70% of the reason he's there effectively meaningless. Even with them, the straight leg ability is nice, as it does mean that he has a higher boost of success, which means he's more likely to land the hit and stun anyone that he does manage to outrun. As mixed parts though, I much so have to rate him just a little higher at a 7 out of 10, given that even though his leg stats aren't too shabby and his arms are just a little light on that armor, field control is a skill that you probably could make good use on depending on the situation, but overall, Yellow Crick is one of those models you probably will sleep on for a while, since if you don't already have someone better, his niche kit also makes him somewhat tricky to even use effectively as mixed parts.